What are your thoughts on what's going on, this whole spectacle that we're seeing?
There's so much that's going on. Let me just try to back it up a little bit. The first thing that people have to understand is the major political outrage of this whole process in terms of the government shutdown and the threat not to pay our bills has to do with John Boehner in the House, who is the Speaker of the House. You have 432 members of the House, 232 Republicans, 200 Democrats. In order to get a majority vote on the floor, you need something like 217 votes. So from day one, what Boehner has been saying is we're only going to work within the Republican caucus. That means we need to get 217 out of 232 votes for anything. So 16 wild and crazy guys out there, and there are more than that, can sabotage any effort.
This is the old Hastert rule?
Well, I don't.
Or some variation.
The answer is
on
a variation on it. But this is not God-given.
Yeah.
So from day one, this crisis could have been solved by simply having Boehner operate as the Speaker of the U.S. House and not the Speaker of the Republican Party. Okay? You got to understand that.
Yeah.
So when you got 20 or 30 extreme right-wing people, many of them who are sworn on a stack of Bibles never to extend the debt ceiling, it's a virtually impossible task to do it. And they failed. They failed. Last night, they completely disintegrated. So that's number one. Number two, what people should know is that this tragedy, this nightmare, has already caused irreparable harm to this country. If you look at our standing in the international community, we are presumably not only the largest economy, but the leader of the free world. And if you think that in Latin America, in Europe, in Asia, all over this world, Africa, people are not saying, what kind of country is this when they can't even keep their government open and they can't even pay their bills? And you have China beginning to become very assertive about this issue. Why is America the leader of the world, and so forth and so on? It's irreparable damage in terms of our prestige and standing in the world community. Thirdly, in terms of people's faith and confidence in their own government, you got 1 million or so federal employees, hardworking people, who have not gotten a paycheck and are scared to death that they may not get a paycheck soon. These are people who have to pay their mortgages, their car loans, their college loans. They're like everybody else. They got to buy food. They got to take care of their family. Some of them are two people working, couples, both husband and wife work for the federal government, causing tremendous anxiety for them. And then you have the tens of millions of people, veterans who absolutely depend upon their pensions, their VA pensions, their disability benefits, in order literally to survive. A lot of these folks don't have a lot of money. People on Social Security worried that if the government defaults, there is a reasonable chance that they may not get their checks in the immediate future. So tremendous anxiety and faith in our own country. If you're a kid, in high school who would be giving some thought to getting involved in the political process, paying attention, what are you thinking now about the United States government? Do you want to work for the government? I suspect, Tom, that at the end of the day, we'll have lost thousands of federal employees who say, look, I haven't gotten a pay raise in 3 years. I got furloughed. Now I'm, sent home for several weeks without a paycheck. What do I want to work for the federal government for? I'll go out and get a job someplace else. And we're going to lose some of our best people, experienced people, and other people are not going to want to come. And this becomes then a self-fulfilling prophecy for the right-wing extremists.
Right.
You destroy government, and lo and behold, government can't do much. So, all right, having said that, I'm going to vote for this agreement because obviously the alternative is catastrophic. We can't default. That will cause an international financial crisis. And we have to reopen the government for all the reasons that I gave. But I want everybody to understand that this agreement is a bad agreement in terms of the level of funding that will continue until January 15th. So we're looking at $988 billion, which is sequestration level funding.
Right. So we're continuing austerity.
Exactly. Austerity for working families. That means major cutbacks for Head Start, major cutbacks for the Meals on Wheels program, major cutbacks for all kinds of programs that help low and moderate income people. And that's what we have. Now, as part of this agreement, and the agreement hasn't been finalized yet, so I'm talking a little bit before the reality is, there is another part of it which says that there will be a conference, probably the Budget Committee, on which I serve, which will then try to deal with future budget issues going into the future, what happens after January 15th. And here's the most important point to be made, I think, with regard to that. In America today, we are living in a nation where, as you've heard me say many, many times, the middle class of this country is disappearing. Tens of millions of Americans are working longer hours for low wages. Most of the new jobs being created are part-time jobs, low-wage jobs. Poverty today at 46.5 million is at an all-time high. We've never had more people living in poverty than now. But in the midst of all of that, the wealthiest people in this country and the largest corporations are doing phenomenally well. So you have incredible income and wealth inequality. You have the top 1% owning 38% of the wealth of the nation, and the bottom 60% owning 2.3%. You have in the last few years 95% of all new income going to the top 1%. I mean, it's just extraordinary. So now we come into negotiations as to, okay, what kind of budget do we have in the future? Now, as you know, everybody knows, budget composes two parts. Number one is revenue. Number two is expenditures. Okay. What our Republican friends are saying is, not only do we not want more revenue to come in, we want to give more tax breaks to very profitable corporations. 1 out of 4 corporations in America pay zero in federal income tax because they stash their money in the Cayman Islands and Bermuda and other tax havens. And obviously, if we're serious about a responsible budget, we have to end that fiasco. The people who, these corporations are going to have to stop paying their fair share of taxes. We have huge tax breaks for the fossil fuel industry and other industries, and that has got to be ended. So the debate that is going to take place, Tom, is, as this committee is assembled, if this thing is passed, is that how do we go forward in terms of a way that is fair? Do we continue to bring austerity to the elderly, to the children, to the middle class, to the sick, and to the poor? Or do we ask the wealthiest people in this country who are doing just phenomenally well, and the large corporations to start paying their fair share of taxes? That is what the debate will be about.
Now, that's going to be between the time of this vote, and the New York Times just announced it's going to be an evening vote in the Senate.
Well, I got a plane to catch. I hope it is early evening.
Yeah. And so, but this, you're talking about that debate. It's going to be after this vote in the Senate, the House, and the President signs this, and before the end of the year.
Right. The goal is for the committee to reach some agreement by December 15th. And
you think it will?
We will see. I hope so. I mean, a lot of this has to do with how the American people respond. I mean, the Republicans now have kind of retreated on this whole thing because they are perceiving that the American people understand that it is totally crazy, that because they want to destroy Obamacare and defund it, that they bring the government to a halt. But I think in the same sense, if the American people understand that we must not balance the budget on the backs of the middle class, we can win this fight.